All right. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning Committee. It's Tuesday, October 7th at 1:02 p.m. This meeting is being held pursuant to KRS 61.826 and Council Rule 5A. So I'm the chair of the committee, Andrew Owen. I'm joined by my vice chair, Scott Reed, joined in chambers by committee member Khalil Batchan, committee member Jeff Hudson, committee member Betsy Rui, committee member, that's all the committee members I think that are in chambers. I'm joined by Councilman J.P. Leninger is in chambers, Councilwoman Bast is in chambers, and then we're joined online by committee member Josie Raymond and committee member Shamika Parrish-Wright, and it looks like Councilwoman Jenny Mulvey-Woolridge is going to be joining us shortly. And I think we'll be joined also in chambers shortly by Councilman Piagentini. So we're going to skip the special discussion for the moment. We're going to get through the pending legislation first and then come back to that. So the first item on the agenda is O-232-25, an ordinance relating to the zoning of property located at 7810 St. Andrews Church Road, containing approximately 0.38 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25, zone 0060. Can I get a motion? Properly moved and seconded. Julia.
Julia Williams, Office of Planning. This is 25 zone 0060. This is located at 7810 St. Andrews Church Road in Council District 12. The existing use is commercial, and proposed use is also commercial. Existing zoning C1 in the Neighborhood Farm District, proposed zoning C2 also in the Neighborhood Farm District. The change in zonings from C1 to C2, there was also a detailed district development plan with binding elements on the site. The proposals on 0.38 acres, the proposed use is auto sales with repair with 6 bays. There's a 28,065 square feet of sales and display area for vehicles, and there's no increase in impervious surface area or building footprint with this proposal. This is the applicant's development plan showing the existing structure and the vehicle display area and parking. This is the subject property as it currently exists. This is across St. Andrews Church Road. Mini warehouse next to the site. The applicant held their neighborhood meeting on May 1st, 2025. LD&T held its meeting on August 14th, 2025. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on September 4th, 2025, where there was a motion to recommend approval of that change in zoning from C1 to C2, passing by a vote of 8-1. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julia. This is in Councilman Joseph's office. Has anyone spoken to Councilman Joseph about this? He hadn't reached out to me. Councilman
Yes,
Batchan, you've spoken to him?
Yeah, so he's actually on his way here.
Okay.
I think he's in the building.
He
He's
is
walking
here.
in the door.
He walks in on cue.
I would like to ask.
Let's find Councilman Joseph a microphone so he can tell us what he thinks about this agenda item. Councilman Joseph.
Well,
Not a moment too soon.
hello to you all. I was wanting to ask, do we have element on this that says that the hours of operation?
No.
Can we get that? I mean, that's my big holdup right now with this.
Get it.
What would you like that to be? Yes.
Did you have something to respond to his question?
There's no hours of operation currently, so if you want to add those, just, I guess you would talk to County Attorney Feaster and let them know what you want that to be.
Okay. Do you have something else?
Yeah, that was my big thing. Councilman Bachon? I'm sorry, that's your job, not my
Councilman
job.
Batchon?
If it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, thank you. I had a couple questions in regards to binding elements as well. Travis, if that's all right. I know, as I was reading through this, they're moving from C1 to C2, and there's no additional binding elements. And I'm trying to, first of all, understand why they're moving the zoning, if I'm read correctly, just to add a fence. Is that correct?
In order to have 6 bays of auto repair, they would need to have C2 zoning to have more than 2.
Okay.
2 is allowed in C1, more than 2 is C2.
Thank you, Julia. And with that being said, if it's all right, Mr. Chair, can I follow up? I didn't notice any binding elements in this for the non-use of liquor stores and/or non-conforming financial institutions and the standard binding element, as well as the hours of operation binding element. Is that possible to add in, or do we need to go back to the client and see if we can get that?
Sure. Travis Feaster, Assistant County Attorney. Any sort of use restrictions or the hours of operation, those are all going to need to be approved by the applicant before they're added. So we do have until, let's see, I think it's early December 3rd on this case, which I guess would be the last council meeting in November. So if we'd like, we can hold on to it, and I can ask about those. If it was just hours of operation, I would say maybe we could get that done before council, but with several different directions at once, it's probably a more significant conversation.
If it's okay with Councilman Joseph, I would motion to try to get this tabled until we can get some clarity on those binding elements, if that's okay.
I was going to say if it were just the hours of operation, that we could go ahead and pass it out of committee, but I think with more complexity than that, I think that makes sense. Councilman Joseph, are you okay with that?
Yes, if I could just have another couple of weeks to get that solidified, I'd appreciate that.
So Councilman Batchon, you want to make that as an official motion?
Yes, thank you. I would like to make the motion for adding the binding elements for non-conforming, or non-chapter.
Well, just, do
Yeah.
you want to just make a
Add the
motion to
binding
table it?
elements. Yes, make the motion to table it. Yes, thank you.
Can I get a second? Second. Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. This will be tabled until our next committee meeting. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item number 3, O-234-25, an ordinance relating to the zoning of property located at 1933 Rockledge Avenue containing approximately .60 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25, zone 0066. Can I get a motion? Properly moved and seconded. Julia.
This is 25 zone 0066. This is located at 1933 North Rockledge Avenue in Council District 8. The existing use is residential, proposed use office. Existing zoning R5 in the traditional neighborhood form district, proposed OR1 in the traditional neighborhood form district. The change in zonings from R5 to OR1, there was a waiver requested and a detailed district development plan with binding elements. The proposal is to convert an existing home into an office. There's 12,000 square feet of existing single-family home there. It's on a .06 acre lot, and there's no site construction proposed. This is the applicant's development plan. This is what the subject property currently looks like. The adjacent property to the south. Across the street, the applicant had their neighborhood meeting on March 26, 2025. LD and the Land Development and Transportation Committee meeting was held on August 14, 2025. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on September 4, 2025, where there was a motion to recommend approval of the change in zoning from R5 to OR1, passing by a vote of 8-1.
Thank you,
Are there any
Julia.
questions?
I spoke to Councilman Reno Weber, whose district this is in, and while he hates to lose any housing units at all, even one in his district, he sees no reason why to be against this. So just wanted everyone to know that. Let's see, I don't think I have anybody in the queue. Anybody have any questions or concerns about this one before we open the roll call vote? Okay, Cheryl, can you open the roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Raymer,
Yes.
Councilmember Parrish Wright,
Yes.
thank you. Chair Owen, you have 8 yes votes.
Thank you. This passed unanimously and will be on old business on the next council agenda. The sponsor of item number 4 has asked that we hold that for one more cycle, so that will come up at our next committee meeting. And then the next item we have is item 5, R-117-25, a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept $20,000 from the Kentucky Heritage Council, the State Historic Preservation Office, through the Historic Preservation Grants Program to be administered by the Office of Planning. Could I get a motion? Motion. Properly moved and seconded. Brian, are you speaking on this?
Yeah,
Great.
Brian Davis, Little Metro Office of Planning. Savannah Dar couldn't be here today, so she has entrusted me and Julia to tell you a little bit about this grant, although I can't read it with my glasses on. Basically, we had applied for and are being awarded a grant in order to do some work. You may recall in the last year or so, we've updated our standard design guidelines. And so the purpose for this grant is to create documentation to help create like an easy-to-use illustrative guide to what those requirements are for our historic areas. And so that's just kind of the overview. If and when we receive the money, the work will be completed by next August, and that's the time frame. And yeah, we just ask for your approval.
Thank you, Brian. I don't see anybody in the queue. Anybody have any questions or concerns about this? Okay, this is a resolution requiring a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, this passes unanimously, and we'll go to the consent calendar going forward. Okay, so now we're going to go back to item number 1. We asked Matt Bullock from KYTC to join us today, and the way I teed it up to Matt was there's a kind of an ongoing conversation here at Metro Council about making sure that we provide, as a government, provide enough quality infrastructure to support the development that's happening, particularly in the high-growth areas of the county. And so asked Matt to come in and kind of speak to some of those large infrastructure projects that are being overseen by KYTC. I got a number of responses from people, emails from colleagues who reached out with specific questions, and I forwarded those on to Matt. And so what I've asked him to do to start is to come up and talk about some of the larger scale projects and kind of talk about those, from 30,000 feet. And then we might get into the weeds a little bit more on some smaller scale stuff after that. So Matt, if you could come up and maybe address some of the large scale infrastructure projects. That should be on. Please introduce yourself and say who you're with, and then we'll go from there.
Is this on? Yep. Good afternoon. My name is Matt Bullock. I'm the Chief District Engineer for the Department of Highways in District 5, which is the Louisville office. We cover 8 counties. Then, of course, the biggest county is Jefferson County. It takes up most of my time, but we all go all the way to Frankfurt as well. So happy to come and talk to the Planning and Zoning Committee today. Talk about the good things that we have going on, because they all are good. I know that a lot of things that we get feedback are, no, they're not so good because I'm impacted and I'm inconvenienced and it takes me longer to get somewhere, and I understand that. I drive a car too, so. As Mr. Chair said, got some things sent to me ahead of time, which I appreciate, but willing to talk about anything as time allows, or as 30,000 versus the weeds allowed as well. Happy to stay as long as y'all need me. But I will hit on a couple of those points that I got sent to me. And most of them are actually in studies. And studies are a really good thing. I know they can be frustrating for some as well because they do take a long time. And then when we're done with them, we have a nice report that says everything that's wrong with the current roadway and things that can be done to help the roadway, but also usually towards the end, it's got a lot of cost estimates for high dollar repairs or improvements to the roadway, and sometimes we have to wait multiple years before we can get those. So that's why it's somewhat frustrating. Sometimes people say, well, we know what's wrong with this road, why don't y'all just get started on fixing it? So we have to identify those things, break out in priority segments, and then of course do cost estimates for those. So I was asked about New Cut Road, Taylor Boulevard study that's been done most recently. We started it back in maybe even late 2022, early 23. We had 2 public meetings, September of 23 and April of 24. And that study became final with a report just in August of this year. So I think there were 10 different recommended alternates in there as potentials, but are not recommended, 10 alternates that were in there as proposals, but the recommended alternate does a lot of things. It's got 3 lane sections on the south end and 4 or 5 lane sections kind of in the middle. But one of the bigger things is medians and some access management. So medians in some of those areas where you have long stretches where you don't have necessarily residential or commercial access points. Shared use paths on one side and sidewalk on the other. What is important is that, again, a lot of things are identified as potential improvements to that roadway basically between Snyder and Watterson. That was identified as the greatest need. Right now, there's no funding in our current road plan to move forward with any of those recommendations, even the smaller pieces. So, of course, the legislature will be getting together for our budget session this coming spring, and we'll get a new document, enacted road plan for us to work from, and it will have to have some funding in there if we're going to move forward with any of those recommendations on that section of roadway. Any questions about that particular one? Okay. Another study we have ongoing right now that some of you all may have been aware of is Outer Loop, and that is basically from Miners Lane there at McDonald's in front of the landfill over to Old Shep. So it's that real commercial, real wide section there. We've done previous studies from that point heading west all the way over to 3rd Street several years ago that made some recommendations, but my personal opinion is this section that's really congested. It's got a lot of access points, a lot of commercial, a lot of traffic, is really, we need to concentrate on, particularly the intersection with Preston Highway. So we just started that study earlier this year. We just had a public meeting last month. Second public meeting will be in early 2026. The report is supposed to be finalized in the summer, somewhere around June or July of next year. And again, to move forward with pieces and parts of that, we'll need funding in the road plan, subsequent road plan. We'll see whether we get enough done with the report and some recommended breakouts, as we call them, and funding pieces that we can actually try to get some things funded in the 2026 road plan. So that remains to be seen. But that one's ongoing. Actually, we have a survey open right now that still can be submitted until October 10th. So just, I guess, next week. Any questions on the Outer Loop?
I have a related question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I just wanted to know around, when you say the funding, you're just saying like what's going to be allocated from the state to these projects? And how are these priorities made? Are they made in conjunction with, I know you're reporting on what you're doing, but are they made in connection with what we've identified as priorities as a council? There's talks in that area?
Yeah, so it's a really complex thing that's probably for another day, but I'll try to sum up quickly, particularly when we have a study that has been already completed. Every odd year, so that's this year, we prepare for the even years when the legislature gets together and does their budget for the transportation enacted highway plan. So we gather data from all the state elected officials and any of the local city councils. We meet with county judges. We take all that input, and the local district, District 5 here in Louisville, takes all that input, and we have our priority list. We have 350 projects on the books right now just in our district. So we look at all of those with all the input that we have, and we come up with a prioritization. And what actually comes out in the enacted highway plan with state funds is usually a lot more projects that can actually be funded with those state funds. So we gather all that input and break it down and try to shortlist things based on all the inputs, whether that's just verbal, written, or we actually have data that we've received through a study process. So it's really complex. It's a really big funnel to get down to those smaller projects, smaller priorities so that we can actually fund those. Secondary to that is we, of course, have KIPTA, the Regional Planning Development Agency, that has the federal funding for the Louisville area. It's got a decent amount of funds, federal funds, and we try to balance those things with what we can fund with state funds. And typically the things that are higher cost are going to be tried to be done through KIPTA because of the federal funding aspect. We just have to make sure we do all those federal hoops and hurdles that we have to go through to fund those. Does that answer your question okay?
It does. I just want to say you actually have studies that you use and you fund. We have a lot of studies that tell us where we should prioritize and what we should do, but we don't end up funding those for various reasons. So I just wanted to see how that broke down on your end. And so when you say the councils and the people give that information, is it done through a committee is it like our planning and zoning committee that are sending those recommendations, or you just have it open through a survey process?
We don't have a formalized process for council for that input, but we're getting questions and wants and inquiries and things about projects all the time. So that is kind of how we are gathering. We can take that at any point in time. We just don't have it formalized. We do have it formalized for the state elected, the representatives and senators. We send out a big project list and spreadsheet and say, by this time, we need your input. Secondarily, I failed to mention that with Metro Public Works and the mayor's office, we have a separate get-together with them to talk about the same things. So they're hearing things as well. So the hope is that we're getting all the input that we possibly can before we go to that prioritization process. We'll also say, last thing about that, on the study side of things is that over the last, say, 3 to 5 years, we've had the most studies done since I've been in this job for almost 20 years now, and that's good, but the bad part of that is that a lot of times we'll finish one of those studies and it's going to have to sit on a shelf with no action taken on it, and sometimes if they sit up there too long and we want to take action at a later date, then we're going to have to kind of refresh and redo some of those, environmental analysis, traffic analysis, and various other things. So sometimes when we do too many of them too quickly, then chances of getting pieces and parts of those funded to actual construction are a little bit more difficult. Another one I was asked about is Preston, and Preston's an interesting one because Louisville Metro Public Works did a study that was basically 61 with Preston Highway from downtown all the way out to the county line. They finished it. Mike, I don't remember if you remember when that was. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. So we waited for Metro to finish that, and we did another one that focused in between the Snyder and the Waterson Expressway, looking at the recommendations that came out of the Metro study. That study as well is complete, and it was wrapped up in June or beginning of July this year. So it has a lot of recommendations. Again, Preston and Outer Loop intersection is a big one that is identified as needing some improvements, additional turn lanes and so forth, different parts and pieces, mainly with intersection improvements. But the study looked at not just vehicular improvements. There's multimodal, there's pedestrian, There's all kinds of things in there. And again, we have to wait and see if something gets funded in the road plan before we can move into the next step. Doesn't have funds. A lot of these planning studies were just funded for the planning study itself, and we don't have ability to move forward with even a midterm, as we call them, a medium recommendation that's not quite as expensive as a whole corridor redo. Those are all the studies that I was asked about. I was also asked about intersection improvements out in Highview area, Fagenbush, Beulah Church, and Outer Loop. Kind of goofy dual intersection there. I know Councilman Bratcher here, formerly Representative Bratcher, has been very interested in this area for a long time. And it's been sitting there. You don't care anymore? Okay. All right. This one has been sitting out there for a very long time. We did the design probably 15 years ago and started purchasing the right-of-way. We actually did a little breakout piece where we did the right turn lane to South Beulah Church. But the project does improvements to both of those intersections, does a little bit of access management, which is a fancy way of saying closing off some access points. But that is for flow of traffic and safety, because the more access points you have, particularly commercial, and they're close to each other and they're offset from each other, and that's where the crashes happen. So that project has had a lot of utility relocations that were pending. We've got them started, and we're hoping to put that out to bid here, I believe, at the end of the year, December. Yes, December, we'll put that out to bid. So we'll put that out to bid in December, assuming we get a good bid and get them under contract probably in January. They'll probably have a year and a half to 2 years to actually do the roadway construction, but there are still utility relocations to be done, and that will delay the start of the actual construction of the roadway. But sometimes we do that, and we write what's called utility impact notes, which basically tells our roadway contractor that, hey, this stuff still has to happen. You all can't come to us and say, hey, pay us for delay claims, because it's actually documented. So sometimes we let these out there to bid, and lots of utilities still to relocate, but the roadway contract construction still has months to go before they begin, and that's going to be the case for this one. But I'd rather just go ahead and get it out there, document everything that's the impact, and not wait until the utilities are completely out of the way before putting it out to bid for construction. So I think that's a good news one. There will be some traffic impacts when that actually starts the actual roadway construction, because it's kind of hard to build both of those as close as they are and not impact some traffic. The locals will be able to use, the ways through some residential areas, I'm sure, for getting around, but our detours are probably going to be on the interstate when that time comes. So we'll be communicating that. We're still a ways away because, like I said, we wouldn't even award a contract until January of next year. Any questions about that one?
Most of the, as it appears to me, most of the utility relocation has been done. It looks like telecommunications is the only thing that's left. Can you verify that?
I can't confirm 100%, but LG&E is usually one of our first ones for the electric side, and then all the communication lines are usually on their assets, their poles, and so they're the last ones to go. I would assume, based on what I've been told about the utility impacts, that there's more than just the communications as an issue. There may be gas lines. So for roadway construction, we allow MSD and water company as part of our roadway construction, because if you're going to tear up the road for gas lines or, water lines or sewer lines, then you might as well have the roadway contractor there, because they're tearing up the road. It's the things that are off the road, usually we have to get them out of the way prior to anybody doing anything, because they're going to get in each other's way. So I don't know that for a fact, but I think it's probably more than just communications.
Okay. That's what it looks like.
Communications
if
are
you could
usually the
follow up-
last and also the quickest as well, so that's why I don't think that's all there's left.
If you could get back with me on what
What we got left on that?
you got left on it, that I'd appreciate that. Thank
Sure.
you.
So the clerk notified me that I do have a list of people in speakers. I'd like for him to hit kind of the high notes before we go into specific speakers, unless the speakers wanted to talk about something he's already discussed. So was there anything that he had already discussed that somebody wanted to talk about? Okay, Councilwoman Rui.
Okay, thank you. So you have mentioned the completion of the New Cut Taylor Boulevard study. You've mentioned the completion of the study on Preston Corridor, but I don't recall having seen them. When do we get them?
New Cut is definitely on our website. The Preston one is new enough, completed, that it may have not been uploaded yet, but we certainly can make sure that's done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I would appreciate if they were sent to our respective offices so that everybody knows they are available.
Will do.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the queue have something that he already discussed, Councilman Bratcher?
I have several things, but just quickly, what Matt has talked about was, what about the traffic study on Barstown Road? Did you bring that up?
I didn't talk about that today, no,
Okay.
because I knew you were going to be here. So that's the one I know that got a lot of press just because of the request for a moratorium, I guess, on developments and so forth. But I believe that one is it still going? I didn't come prepared to talk
No,
about that.
it was
It's either
due
way.
April,
Okay.
and
That's the
then you
one.
delayed it till August, and now it's October.
Yeah, I believe that it's now just, we have comments in that the consultant has to finish up before we put a bow on that and upload it to our website as well. I do know that we've, for that one in particular, when we were doing our project prioritizations, we, cracked open the draft version of that to look at some things that potentially for this legislative session next year, if it's something we want to try to offer up as a potential. If you want to look at a lane in each direction for that whole road all the way down to the county line, it's $150 million. So that's not one that we would just say, hey, I think we need to do this. But there were some other things in there that could be impactful and beneficial that's not nearly that expensive. And when the report comes out, you'll be able to see that.
Great. There's just a lot of interest in developing that corridor.
Yep.
And, the Cooper Chapel corridor, which is a metro, that phase 3, I don't think that has anything to do with the state that much, but it's like been around for 30 years.
Yep.
This outer loop in Beulah Church was there when I first took office in the legislature in the 90s. They were talking about it, and it's still not done. And now this planning commission, we spent a planning study, or a traffic study, $500,000 for that thing. And it's so late, and then the chairman and people are jumping on me because they want to build out in Fern Creek, and I have to pump the brakes. It's like, man, we got traffic issues. We're waiting on a study, and that's kind of my frustration.
Well, point taken. You and we've communicated about this. The study is obviously very important because it addresses a lot of needs out there. But until we actually can move forward with something, it's just a document that says this is what can be done and how much it costs. So that's what the document will say, of course, but until we actually move forward with something that is impactful or beneficial out there, are we going to continue to stop all development until that time? Because we don't necessarily have the control over that aspect. We just have the consultant that's doing the study, putting the information out there and saying, here is what can be done, here are the costs, and we're kind of at the mercy of how the funding and legislature puts out that enacted plan.
Well, but traffic studies and traffic issues are a part of the formula for building.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be great to have the latest information.
Absolutely.
And then also, before you leave today, do we still do the formula fifths as far as appropriating money to Jefferson County?
for the rural municipal aid funds and the rural roads, yes.
And, you know, it's no secret that Louisville is, comes up on the short end of the stick on that because of, if you look at the 5 elements of can you explain it, the formula?
Not very well, but, well, it's only for rural classified roads, for one thing. So Bardstown Road, all these other roads that we've been mentioning today, funding doesn't go towards that. It would be Johnson Road, for example, is a rural secondary road. Route Road, there's actually not a whole lot of Terry Road, I think is. So the fifth formula is a 5-part formula that is based off rural population, rural mileage of road in that county, rural area by the census. There's 2 more parts, obviously, and the gas tax goes into that formula of those 5 parts. And so there's some counties that would get a lot more because they have a lot more rural road mileage and rural area and rural population. And Jefferson County, of course, does not. So, but there are not a whole lot of rural secondary roads in Jefferson County that receive that funding. So
because of that, it doesn't have as much of a detrimental effect as it would have? Because we just don't have that many roads that qualify under that?
That's correct.
Okay.
In Jefferson County, I don't see it as a major problem. Of course, you can always use more funding
Sure.
Everywhere, but it hurts some of the counties. This fifth formula hurts some of the counties that are kind of tweeners between urban areas and real rural areas.
Right. Well, hold on, let's go ahead and knock out a few more of the bigger pieces that you have on your list there, and then we'll get back to some questions.
Okay, well, for, my mental list for the construction, of course, is what we're calling Central Corridor projects for the bridges on 65 through the downtown area between Watterson and downtown. Right now, 3 of those are the ones that are our highest priority. We've submitted for grants for additional bridges. There are 18 bridges between downtown and the Watterson Expressway that have needs, and we're trying to get more federal funds to take more bites of that apple at a time, or bites of the elephant, I guess. But right now, we only have the 3 in the priority list, and that's what the shutdown next summer is for those 3 bridges. And all it takes is one trip under the 65 overpass at Kentucky Brook intersection to understand why we need to do this. On top, things look pretty decent, but underneath is where the problems are. So next summer, after Derby and school, I believe, I think is when we're doing the shutdown. And then there's a phase after the shutdown where we do 2 lanes in each direction. We have to cross over traffic onto the other side in order to do that, take some barrier wall out. So right now, some of the work that's happening with roadway closures in the old Louisville area and a couple other places, because it's the Preston Burnett Bridge is another one, that's preparation for next year, actually. So I know that we've hired a actual communications company, C2, to do our outreach for that project alone, because it's big enough and more impactful enough that we need to make sure we have a good, consistent message. And our public information officer at the office is working on a lot of other things like Watterson Interchange at 42, 64 widening in Shelby County. So a lot more information to come on that particular project, but of course that's the one that's got a lot of buzz right now because of anytime you shut down 65 or any of our interstates, it's a major deal. I can mention a little bit about the Watterson and 42 interchange. Started back in late February, early March. The contractor Cleary is making great progress. Of course, we have 42 restricted at this point. And the biggest restriction is for eastbound traffic. They go down to 1 lane as opposed to the 2 they normally had. But we've done a lot of mitigation out there that I think we've kind of maximized what we're going to get as far as any additional mitigations. We've done, of course, signing, striping. Our traffic signals have radar detection as opposed to in pavement loop detection. And so those things communicate with each other, and we have the ability to be back at the office and see the signals and how they're progressing and make changes on the fly from the office. those are pretty beneficial. We do have a camera at the interchange that we can watch as well and change some signal timing there as needed. So far, it's been pretty good. I know River Road closure has been a contributor to the traffic at 42, but they're this month getting to the point where they're going to get to Lime Kiln intersection, which should negate the detour people from coming up 42 unless they just want to drive through there. But that's not a necessity anymore. So water company's making great progress. Our contractor's making great progress. Can't speak about the VA hospital, but they're still well into next year before they open up. So any questions about that project or the 65 project?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Matt. And you're absolutely correct. You know, the timing on this with River Road and the KYTC project certainly complicated things. And I will also say that I think that some of the changes that you've made have helped mitigate some of the issues. It doesn't appear to be, to me at least, and I drive it every day, as bad as it could have been. So I applaud you for that. Here is what I would like to see moving forward. My office did not receive any notification that this was going, we all knew it was going to happen, okay? But we didn't receive any notification at all from your office or anyone until basically when it was going to happen. We had people that were reporting back to us that they were looking at the sign that said road closure in 2 days. Well, they found out about it before I did. So I even talked to Mayor Greenberg about it. He said the same thing. So I'm just imploring your office to be more proactive, because I've always found that people are that much more responsive and receptive to bad news if they can prepare for it. So I do think that some of the things that you've done have made a bad situation not so bad. I don't think it's as bad as people thought it would be. Now, when VA eventually does open, we'll see. But I'm just asking for your office to please be more proactive. Give us some notice. I mean, surely you knew about a month before this was going to happen, when it was going to happen, so that we can get it in our newsletter. Our newsletter has 2,500 people subscribed to it. I've got Facebook pages, and we can allow people to know. So I'm just asking you to do that moving forward, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Understand that. We only put it out there as soon as we know exactly when it's going on. So you may know that we put it out to bid twice, because the first one was way too high. So we had to get the second bid and awarded, of course, and then we meet with the contractor and they tell us when they want to start. And so that's when it's first communicated, is when they're going to start. And so the signs going out there was within that week of us being notified by our contractor they're going to start. Obviously, we knew things were coming up to us putting it out to bid, but until we get that actual good bid and an award, there's really no need to say, hey, it's out there, because then we may go multiple months, because there was 2 months between the first and the second bid. So we're doing the best we can as far as getting you the freshest information. The only thing we could have done differently is said, hey, we're putting it out to bid. We don't know when it's going to actually start, because we don't, because the contractor dictates their start. We just tell them when they have to be done by.
Well, when you put it out to bid, do you have a general idea when they're going to start?
No.
I mean, no idea whatsoever.
If they have a 2.5 year project, they could decide that they're going to wait 6 months to start and then knock it out. So no, that's why a lot of times we don't even send a press release out there until we've had that, what we call a pre-construction meeting, where they sit down with us, go over the contract details, and they tell us we're ready to start in 2 weeks. We start putting the message boards out, and we send a press release out. That's when most people get the notification. If we're going to get in front of that, we're guessing a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Councilman Batchon.
Mr. Bullock.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for being here.
Sure.
With all due respect, in a contract, and you put something out for bid, you're essentially dictating the start date. So how can you say you require it to be done by this date, but not dictate the start date?
Because if we have a year-long, 2-year-long, 3-year-long, 4-year-long, they can wait till whenever they're comfortable to start. We can't tell them when to start.
I will agree to disagree with you, but I think that's something
That's the
you
way the
should
state
probably
does
look
our
into.
contracting. It's not a local preference or anything like that. That's how we do our contracts.
Well, I would probably want to look into that.
Okay.
So let's let people weigh in. Councilman Piagentini, you're the first in the queue, so let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll see where we are.
Well, before I do you have another list of projects that you haven't gotten to yet? Because I've got a half dozen projects here that were sent via email that you haven't talked about yet.
I've not gotten those.
Okay, all right. Let me do, all right, then let's do this, because I don't want to waste everybody's time here. I'll send you separately these emails that were sent by Councilman Benson's office and my office on September the 30th and October the 1st. They didn't get to you, we'll fix that. I've got a series of projects here that maybe I can just do quick updates on, and then I've got one or two comments or recommendations. North English Station, when is that construction going to begin-ish? Again, understanding you don't dictate start. When is it supposed to be done? Let's put it that way.
We want to and hope to put it out to bid in January.
Okay,
And it's going to be another one that we put it out there, get a good bid, and the first thing that's going to happen is a lot of gas line work, and they're not supposed to be done with gas lines until probably August. So we probably won't see much roadway work until this time next year.
okay. Do you know when that project was fully funded?
No, I do not.
According to your website, it doesn't indicate fully funded. It indicates the project was, quote, "The project was presented to the public in 2001." So we will begin construction in 2020. That is a 1.5-mile stretch of road. And it takes 25 years to go from a presentation to the public to beginning construction?
Well, this was a metro project, it's a metro road, and the state took it over. I don't remember which year that was, so I can't speak to all those years prior to, say, the last 10. That's approximately the time frame when the state took it over. It's still a metro road, and so we are going to take it over as a state road after construction, so we'll have English Station and Old Henry from Shelbyville Road all the way to Ash Avenue in Oldham County as a state road after the completion.
Okay, but you all agreed to take it over?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not as though we foisted it upon you.
I'm sorry?
We didn't foist it upon you against your will, right? Like you guys accepted taking over the road.
I think the thought back in those days was that it was languishing and not moving forward, and so we took it over.
Okay, well, I mean, I can tell you, I can't think of a project. I've gotten road projects funded. I've been in office for 7 years, funded while I was here, and they got executed while I was here from the city. So, I mean, I don't know why it was languishing or what was going on. I can't speak for what happened 15 years ago, but it's a 25-year project now. How about the Eastwood Cutoff Gilliland Road intersection with US 60?
Let to bid, awarded, under contract, and utility relocations are ongoing. We're probably looking at a year from now for that roadway to be done as well.
To be done?
Yep, constructed, yes.
And then two more quick projects. The US 60 widening in Shelbyville, widening in Middletown?
I believe that was only preliminary design done on that. And I will say it's not a wholesale widening. It's some access management and some turn lanes, but it's in design right now.
Okay. So design, so we're talking about probably, you haven't even done right-of-way. I mean, so
No.
many, many years.
And I'm not sure in that section of roadway where right-of-way is actually going to be needed. I can't say for now, but it's pretty wide right now.
Okay. Councilman Benson's office asked me to ask about the signalization of South Pope Lick and Taylorsville Road.
It's coming. It was originally going to be our roadway contractor, going to be funded through the roadway contract, but they had problems with resources for getting a subcontractor to do that, so we ended up doing our own contractor, and they've been running around doing out-of-state work for other states and relocations. So that is coming here the next 2 months, probably.
Okay. And then, so I have a couple other projects here. Most of them are studies. One is related to the highway study on for the new exit on 64 that'll go in sort of the eastern area of Jefferson County. Another one of the Johnson Road reconstruction plan. I'll email this to you, and you can respond there so as not to waste time here on probably broader questions. I would, a request and then a quick question about something. First of all, the 64 eastbound to 265 northbound exit ramp where the overpass is, it's settling even more. You guys tried to fix it, it's settling again, particularly the right lane. I mean, the bump is getting bigger every day. I take it basically every day, and it's just getting worse and worse. Somehow that needs to be smoothed out, because it's getting worse and people are going to start getting vehicle damage. But my question for you is why, so you said you had 350 projects? How many?
Yes.
Okay. And I looked at the website, right, which doesn't have 350 projects on it, but has a lot, and a lot being in Jefferson County, to your point, the vast majority. Why can't we, you, create a spreadsheet that has 350 projects on it, that has, your process is design, right-of-way, utility, movement, construction, right? And put broad brushstroke timeframes in there so that we can inform, because, I mean, all we get, I get every single day questions about state projects, okay? I highlighted a few of them, but there's others that I get questions about. And I'm always playing this game of I have no idea. It's a little less tactical than what Councilman Reed is talking about, but is there any way, and why would that be so hard? I mean, you have project managers, right, that are managing this stuff, to put that into a master spreadsheet that, again, very high level, right? It could say, date ranges that could be years, right? But at least I could tell people, hey, look at that spreadsheet online, or, hey, I've got it here and it says it's going to be 5 more years till they get through right away, or, potentially, or whatever the deal is.
So, well, you've mentioned two things. We do have a spreadsheet with all those 350 projects, but I would say only 10% or less of those actually have funding that we actually are doing anything on. So speculation for the 90% of those projects.
So let's focus on the 10%.
Yeah.
Can we get a published
Yes.
spreadsheet that has date ranges for each of those segments of the project?
Yes.
Once it's funded?
Yes. And in fact, we probably already have that.
Is that something you can put out publicly, or something you could, can you put it on your website?
Yeah, and
I didn't see anything like
the
that
regional
there.
KIPTA, they have what they call an MTP, Metropolitan Transportation Plan, that is making those informed guesses on dates. They call them open to traffic dates of everything listed in there. I don't know if you want to go to that. That's real high level, and of course, it's making a lot of assumptions. But the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan at KIPTA, has that information for way more than the 10% that we know that we have funding to move forward on.
Okay, I'll ask for that or whatever else you can share via my email as well, because, that would be a resource that would stave off a lot of phone calls that we deal with. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Agreed.
Thank you, Councilwoman Best.
Hello, thank you for being here today. I want to ask something that I think a lot of us who counsel our areas and our constituents that live in the neighborhoods are wondering is, how do we get to a place where we're being proactive versus reactive? I guess from where I sit, it kind of feels like we're always waiting until after a crash or fatality, after a tragedy. So how many fatalities does it take before something gets done? And when is the next life lost worth making the changes to these roads? As council, we live in these districts. We see the issues. We see the problems. Our constituents see it. And the traffic studies do not nearly compare to what we see in our daily lives when we live in our area. We have people coming out into the area doing these traffic studies that don't live there. They don't see it. And to be honest, I think they're horrible. A lot of times they don't even align what we see on a daily basis. And just to throw out, Dixie Highway, Blevins Gap, East Orel, the Greenbelt, Terry Road, Johnsontown Road, all of these areas. We just had another fatality yesterday on Dixie Highway in the 3-mile stretch that we've been complaining about for years and years and years. We can't get traffic lights. We can't get, we've got to do something about these head-on collisions. And quote me if I'm wrong, in the last, how many fatalities are we up to now?
As of last night, 18 in 3 years. 18
fatalities in 3 years in the same 3-mile stretch. not including pedestrians hit and severe accidents that have happened in these same areas by Flowerville, Blevins Gap, by the Gene Snyder, Citation Road, Valley Station Road, all in a 3-mile stretch. That's 18 lives where we've been begging for something to get done. So what, in your opinion, do we need to do here to make those changes to save a life?
Well, you threw a lot at me there because looking at the crash data, for example, for those fatalities, there's a whole wide range of issues. You have head-on collisions. You have people walking on the shoulder or right at the edge line at night in dark clothes. You have people running across the road. You have people in wheelchair or bike doing those similar things. So it really is what is actually happening. I talk to people weekly about the need for traffic signals all over the place. And traffic signal wouldn't have done anything for the most recent head-on collision and the previous head-on collision or the pedestrian that was hit most recently or the person in the wheelchair on the shoulder. Those types of things aren't addressed by traffic signals. And in fact, traffic signals can induce additional types of crashes that weren't at an intersection before. So that's why we weigh all those factors. But I'm going to go hit the first point that you made was these these studies, these corridor studies that we do are gathering all that information, including local elected official meetings at the front ends, public meetings, usually twice during that time frame. And then our consultant is pulling all the crash data that's through the state police database. So besides getting all the data that's in there and talking to the locals, including the elected officials, I'm not sure where else we're going to gather information that we're already doing. But of course, like I said earlier, a lot of the times those studies, we spend a lot of time, we talk to people, we put a big report together, and if we don't have a mechanism for funding any aspect of that moving forward, then it's going to go on the shelf, and then we're going to do a study somewhere else. So it's managing and balancing the needs and the funding, and it's always a funding issue because we have needs everywhere.
Well, I will agree that a signal light wouldn't address all those issues. But for an example, Blevins Gap in Dixie, we have, the last light we have is at Gene Snyder or Flowerville, and you don't have another light until Pendleton. And that is a long stretch of 2 miles that people wide open 80, 90 miles an hour all day long. And you have a road that the infrastructure has grown so much with the amount of apartments that have been shoved in down there in the last 2 to 3 years. You have an influx of people pulling out of this road, trying to come out into 60, 70, 80 mile an hour traffic. And a lot of those crashes are happening right there, where I do believe a signal light is warranted there. As far as the head-on collisions, we absolutely need to do something barrier-wise down through there to stop all the head-on collisions. We've got to do something. I just don't know. It gets to a point where, we have constituents every day, as well as ourselves. We're trying to figure it out. And at the end of the day, we get the right person just hasn't died yet. Soon as that happens, they'll fix something. I don't want to live on Dixie Highway where that's the mentality that we are getting from our constituents, and that's how they look at the state progress. And we need to fix that.
I guess my counter argument, if there's 18 fatalities in the last 3 years, then that it's not based off those because of the crash data. We're also, to your earlier points, by the federal regulations that we follow, aren't allowed to put in a signal to manage speed. It is for traffic management, as in people on the side streets or the volume on the main line and so forth. So there is that. So the distance between signals, unless they're too close, is never a factor. It's always about traffic volumes from the side street, and usually you have to have 105, I don't know where that came from, 105 per hour from the side street coming out for 8 hours of the day. And the reason it's for that many hours of the day is that every single school in Jefferson County would have a traffic signal in front of it because of the arrivals in the morning and the departures in the afternoon. So it's not for speed management, it is for traffic management. And so we also look at crash types at intersections. So we have what we call correctables. So correctables are those angle crashes, somebody pulling out and getting hit. And so a signal could potentially help with that. But if there's a whole slew of rear-end collisions at this intersection, traffic signal can actually make those worse. So again, it's a balance of what's going on out there and what we think we can help, but it really boils down to the traffic numbers more than anything else.
And do you have the numbers for Dixie Highway recently, since all the influx of apartments have went in that area?
I know we've been asked about Orrell intersection a bunch of times, and we have counted that, and it wasn't really even close. I'm not aware of one north or south of there where we've been asked specifically about doing a warrant analysis, as we call it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. I want to revisit Councilman Reed's point about getting notice earlier in the process. And your response was, well, once we let the contract, it's up to the contractor to decide when they start. A contract is nothing more than a list of specifications and requirements. Why couldn't you put a requirement in the contract that the contractor provide you notice 30 days in advance of their start?
If it involves lane closures, and particularly high-volume places or an interstate, then we shoot for 30 days to get that. And we get that most of the times, but not always, particularly on a surface street, not an interstate. We only ask for 2 weeks in that regard.
Well, I just chose 30 days out of arbitrary numbers. Why couldn't we put in the contract a period of time in advance of work that the contractor notifies your office of their start date?
That is typically 2 weeks for us.
But when Councilman Reed just asked you about it, you said it was, you never know. It's up to them to start.
Yeah, but then to let us know when they're going to start. The contract doesn't say you have to start on January 1.
That's not what I'm asking.
Yeah.
The point Councilman Reed was making was signs went up on the side of the road. He didn't know anything about it. Your response was, once we let the contract, we are not notified when the contractor is going to start.
Well, I can tell you that when the
Unless I misheard.
When the signs end up on the road, and I know for that project in particular, we had a release out either that day or the day before or multiple days before that, because we knew about the impacts, and I can verify that if you need to.
Okay. I had a second, if I can. Go ahead. Right now, it's against state law, or there's a prohibition in the state law to have automated speed enforcement. Does the Department of Transportation have any influence that they could help to change that law so that we could have automated speed enforcement?
We've had legislators come to us, and we have a fine set of folks in Frankfurt that work for transportation that are legislative liaisons that when bills come in that are transportation related, for example, because it has come up in the past, we review and we give our professional opinions. But we have no influence. We can't dictate. We are certainly in support of automated speed enforcement, red light running cameras, and the like. But right now, it's not legislatively allowable. Now, we do have hybrid enforcement. That's a new law that we're starting this year, which you may have seen us send some stuff about, which is in work zones focused enforcement, where a camera system will pick up a vehicle going through a work zone where it's reduced speed limits, and there'll be an officer at the end of the line there, and they'll have a picture of the car with the license plates sent to them, and they can write them a ticket, and it is $500, because that's what the new law says. But that's the only thing where we have automated. It's called hybrid automated is what that system is. But the other systems we don't have, but the Transportation Cabinet certainly is in favor of some kind of automated enforcement moving forward, because the majority of the issues that we have with crashes are speed, but inattention or aggressive driving.
Is your office doing anything proactively in that regard, sending a letter to the legislature asking?
My office, no, but that's what our Kenny Bishop and our Frankfurt office is the one that is our communicator for the legislature, and that has been well communicated in previous legislative sessions when the bill has come at least to committee.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Councilwoman McCraney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Matt. Thank you for being here today. I don't know if my list got to you. I think I sent it the other day, so you may not have received it. But I do want to communicate a very dangerous and deadly area right there going I-71 towards downtown, right at the I-71 northbound split. When you're on 264, there are lines that don't clearly indicate that the area has merged into one lane. So is there any way you can look at, and I had sent some pictures, so I will send them to you directly, but right there, right before the I-71 split northbound towards Cincinnati, the lanes stop, and you can't clearly tell. Motorists are still in the left lane thinking that they're going straight when there are cars on the right lane who should be going towards I-71 northbound, but they're clearly not in the right lane because the lanes kind of merge together and they're not clearly indicating that they are to merge over to go straight towards 264. And there are signs that indicate over to the left-hand side that there's a merger coming, but it's after the fact. It needs to be moved up a bit, and those lines need to be clearly marked and some erased because it's not distinguishable. Do you know what I'm talking about, that area?
Yeah, absolutely. I just drove through it to come here. There are signs that show the left lane closes 1,500 feet ahead prior to that location. But what I noticed, and particularly today in the rain, is that the lines on the pavement aren't great. And actually, since the lanes were shifted due to the maintenance of traffic, the old lane lines are kind of somewhat visible, and there's some potholes in the old line there. So it looked like to me that it was more about refreshing, well, we need to get the potholes filled in there, but refreshing those lines so that it was more distinguishable. I'll review the signs as well, but I did see the 1,500 feet ahead left lane closed. But as you know, that they're coming 2 lanes eastbound Waterson. You start to drop that left-hand lane on the Waterson if you want to go 71 to downtown, but then we develop the right turn lane to go 71 north. So where you're dropping one, you're adding one. We need better lines on there. So yeah, I agree with that.
That's exactly correct. Thank you so much.
All
I
right.
almost wrecked my husband almost wrecked, not me. But I also wanted to indicate there on her lane in front of the Wilder Elementary School, the lines for the crossing needs to be redrawn. And on both sides, there should be an indication for the motorist that there's a crossing walk. And on the eastbound side, I want to believe that's the right way, coming from Lime Kim, going up her lane, that direction, I don't believe there's a sign there. And I can, again, send you that information in detail, but is this your road to where you can get those lines redrawn so that they are clearly indicating the crossing walk?
Yeah, it's a state road, but Public Works takes care of the road for us by contract. So we'll talk with them about refreshing those if needed. I do know there's at least one sign. There should be a sign in each direction that indicates there is a crosswalk there, but there are no flashing lights or anything like that. So we'll see about refreshing the markings.
Are there no flashing lights that
No,
can be there?
just a pedestrian sign on each side is what's supposed to be there.
Okay, on each side, and there's one missing on one side of it. So if you can just check that out. Thank you so much.
Will do.
Councilman Batchon.
Thank you. Mr. Bullock, in the New Cut Road, Taylor Boulevard study, what prompted that study?
I guess I can't answer that because I'm not sure what prompted the study.
Outer Loop, Miners Lane, Old Shep, what prompted that study?
Well, I guess probably an overarching answer to any of the studies we have on these larger corridors in the Louisville area is we rely on our partners over at KIPTA. They do regional analysis. They have, of course, the data. They have socioeconomic, they have environmental, they have the crashes, they have the traffic volumes, and it kind of, from a network standpoint in the Louisville area, shows these areas that, you know, if you want to call them hot spots. And sometimes it's just, you know, word of mouth that we hear that there are issues on particular roads. And so when the planning funds become available, we look at those things that are kind of already on the wait list, and we go from there.
My reason for asking that is I wanted to know specifics of what prompted those studies. How many deaths were on New Cut and Taylor Boulevard? How many deaths are at Outer Loop and Miner Lane? How many deaths are at Bardstown Road where these studies were done?
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
How many deaths is it going to take for a study to be done on Dixie Highway from Blevins Gap to Flowerville?
We don't base it on the number of deaths.
How can we get, in your professional opinion, a study done at Blevins Gap to Flowerville?
We can look at the data to see what it says and go from there and see if
I've been
funds are
emailing
available.
you about this corridor since I took office in '23, since January of '23. And we have basically been told to kick the can down the road. I would like to get a study done at Blevins Gap to Flowerville, and something to be done about the traffic calming measures on Dixie Highway corridor, and a little more respect for the south end of Louisville. Frankly, because we are constantly the redheaded stepchild. How many, to Councilwoman Bass's point, who is the right person that needs to die for something to get done? This is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't mean to come off this way, but the constant comments and the lack of true answers here has gotten me to a point where I'm a little frustrated. We need some clarity. We need actual facts. We're giving you the data on the deaths. We're giving you everything that you need. We're not getting answers. What is it going to take? If it takes something that we can do, we will jump on it immediately.
Well, there's always council-funded studies. Those have been done in the past as well.
We have had people offer to pay for this traffic calming measures. Developers offer to pay for the stoplights or whatever it takes. And we're constantly told no. But I can drive to District 19.
Nobody has offered to pay for anything out in this area that you're talking about that I'm aware of.
I will find that email.
We don't let developers or anybody pay for signals if they're not warranted. So just keep that in mind. If they don't meet the criteria, then nobody can pay for them.
When do we get the study to meet the criteria to tell us that that is warranted?
Traffic signal?
Anything.
You can name any intersection you think deserves a traffic signal, and we can look at any of those.
Okay, I'll give you a great example. Last week in zoning, District 19 was going to overturn a planning and zoning case for a commercial development at the Eastwood-Shelbyville Road intersection because there was no traffic signal. Comes back, decides not to overturn the case because the state has agreed to put a traffic signal in. How does that work?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, then, it obviously came out of your department, so I would like for you to look that up and just maybe let me know offline.
About a traffic signal at Eastwood?
It's at Eastwood and Shelbyville Road, am I correct? The VRP Park, or whatever it was? Johnson Road, sorry.
Johnson Road, there's not a signal, there's not a signal warranted. We're looking at a potential signal at our new projects where we're realigning Eastwood coming out on Shelbyville Road.
That's, okay, yes.
But not Johnson Road.
And the light is going to go in at that intersection there. And it was,
It's not going in with the project. I want to make sure you understand that
I understand,
aspect.
but your department said, yes, we will put that in.
If it is warranted, which I assume it's probably going to be because of.
How many
the
deaths are at
realignment.
that intersection?
I don't know the answer to that either.
Well, I'd like to know the answer to that, if you can look that up.
Okay. But deaths aren't what warrants signals on its own. Like I said before, it's the traffic
I don't
volume
care if
for
it's
the
a
turns.
stoplight or medians down the middle of the road. I think we need to do something for traffic calming in the south end on Dixie Highway, period. And we would like your support in making that happen as the director of the traffic, as Department of Transportation for the state and the city.
Well, you have our support, and we've done a lot of things. We just haven't gone beyond Greenwood Road with the project that we did up front, because that was about $75 million. But we've identified some spots, just that are not funded. But traffic signals aren't part of that equation. We're talking about, we've talked about barrier wall, particularly south of the Snyder and actually south of 44 all the way to the Hardin County line because of the number of head-ons there. Several years ago, we added 4 feet to the median and stole from the shoulders, and I think that's been very helpful. But it's not a hard barrier. But anytime you have a hard barrier, you got to protect those ends, or else you're going to kill people on the edges of those barriers.
I would like to see those studies and what we need to do to move forward.
Those are individual traffic studies, or traffic signal studies, not corridor. We have not done a corridor study for that section of Dixie.
We have a few more people in the queue. Councilman Joseph.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been in for 8 months, and one of the biggest several of the biggest concerns we have had with Greenwood Road, since I've been little, that has been it feels, if there's a road that feels like the can's been kicked down the road, it feels like the Greenwood. And, even last year when I would go door to door, it was like the constant neighbor piece is, well, we've been told that for years. We've been told that for years. And I don't really have anything to tell them because I don't know what to tell them. Terry Road, I know you talked about that a minute ago. I had to send an email on Terry to have something looked at, and it took me, I sent an email, and I'll never forget it. It said, hello, I am following up to the follow-up of my follow-up, because I didn't get any response. A guardrail on Dixie, where right now a fence is just literally dilapidated. And I just feel like I'm getting no communication back, and these are some of the most hot topics of my district. And I don't know, communication-wise, what that looks like of how the communication can be better. I sympathize. I'm right there with Councilman Batchon when it comes to feeling like the South End is continuously the forgotten area. And I guess communication-wise, what are some good tips in regards of communication with the state when it comes to state roads?
Well, I want to clarify and clear up the guardrail situation. You did get answers. I don't think you liked the answer because we didn't say that it warranted. The fence was either going to get repaired by Public Works, or we said it didn't need one at all because of the distance between the roadway. So there was communication on that. About replacing or putting a guardrail there where there was a fence.
Yeah, the fence that's dilapidated, that's on a state road, that is literally falling apart in a huge ditch where if a car were to go over, that fence.
But the fence wasn't going to stop a car, so you said.
Correct, the fence isn't going to stop a car, but a guardrail would.
Well, it doesn't meet the warrants for a guardrail because of the distance away from the roadway, or else we put a guardrail in front of everybody's house, and, it's.
But everybody's house isn't a 50-mile-an-hour
I just want to clarify, where you got the communication. where there
After
was
a long
lack of
period of time,
communication.
there are very specific regulations or very specific kind of guidelines that they have to follow. I mean, I understand the frustration, but they also have some guidelines that they have to work within as well.
It wasn't a matter, though, of just the matter of not getting an answer that I would quote-unquote want. It's a matter of the lack of communication, the length of communication, and if I ever get communication back has been a big issue. And again, not knowing two of the heavy roads in my district, I don't know what, I'm the elected representative. At the end of the day, they're not coming to you, they're not coming to anybody in regards to KY, anybody with the state. They're coming to us, and we don't have answers. And that's the frustrating part, and I've tried to get answers. And so I'm in a weird spot of what do I tell the people when I'm literally elected to represent the people. in that spot
Well, I
specifically.
know some people prefer to have all constituent communications come through them to the agency or whatever, and I get that, I'm fine with that. But you also can just say, here's who you need to call, and they can address it. I mean, we do that all day, every day. I mean, we get an unbelievable amount of stuff through social media and our general inbox, as well as when people know individual email addresses that go directly to us that are your all's constituents. So it's an unbelievable amount that you don't know about. So I'm fine with either way, because we're going to get a lot no matter what. But if it wants to come through you and you come to us and you feel like that you're addressing your constituents, I get that, and that's still fine. But I just want to let you know that we're getting a ton otherwise.
So then wouldn't it make sense for us to have a better idea of what's going on in regards to, rather than y'all having to blast out to constituents or whatnot, that we have?
You could look at it both ways. You want to be in the know, obviously. You want to be in the know for your constituents. But at the same time, if everything comes through you, then you may get to the point where you can't address everything in a timely fashion either, even your legislative aid. Because like I said, it's a lot.
So
we got 26 council people here and 37 legislative state elected officials that we work with in our district.
Can you tell me with Greenwood Road that's hitting 2 districts and Terry Road that's hitting 3 council districts, what the?
I don't know anything about Terry Road as far as project related, but Greenwood Road I can address.
Sure.
So I started in 2006, and pretty quickly after I started, we had a public meeting at the school there, not the high school, but the middle school or elementary school. And it was going to the public and getting input on whether we were going to do a 3-lane or a 5-lane roadway there. So we had preliminary plans for both of those. The overwhelming reception from the public and Charlie Miller, the state rep at the time, was that 5-lane road is too impactful, let's go to the 3. So we kind of stepped back, did plans, completed those, spent many, many years buying all the right-of-way parcels. I think there was well over 100, maybe 150. And so now we're in the waiting game of getting the utility companies out there to do their relocations. And it's very similar, if anybody are familiar with Blue Lake Road that we just finished a few years ago. Really very similar road. Ditches on both sides, utilities on both sides, underground sewer in the middle, and all of it's got to be relocated, even for the 3-lane section. So the last communication we had sometime within the last 6 to 12 months was that we don't expect to go to construction on Greenwood Road until 2030 because of the utilities. But they are doing pretty well on some of our other Jefferson County projects. Of course, LG&E, AT&T, and the communication companies, they don't just work here in Jefferson County. We have projects in Oldham County and Bullitt County as well. So we have them running around like crazy. But most recently, we kind of projected out that it's probably more like late 27 that we would put that one out to bid. So that's, a solid 3 years from what we were previously communicating on that.
And in your terms, when you hear put out the bid, how timeline-wise, typically after the bid, well, what does that look like for someone who is new to council?
Yep. The 3rd January of every month, we have a what we call a letting, which is basically letting it out to bid, but it's basically that day is the bid opening. We've already advertised it for 3 weeks. So on that Thursday morning in Frankfort, they open up those bids, and about a week to 10 days later, there's a awards committee. That's usually our leadership in Frankfort and the Transportation Cabinet look at those, and they agree to award or to reject. And then probably a couple weeks after that, so approximately 3 weeks after the opening, sometimes maybe as much as 6 weeks after, there is a notice to proceed to the contractor. So more like a month and a half after the bid opening, the contractor will have an official notice to proceed on their contract. And again, that contract says you have to be done on this date. It doesn't say anything about you have to start next week, because that's a floating day based on all those other things. Do we have the first time we put it out to bid, do we have a good bid that we can award, or do we have to put it out again, or 2 months later, or 6? The interchange in Bullitt County, where we did it 480, we put it out to bid 5 times. So the beginning date is very difficult. The end date, all we do is shove it another month or 2 every time we put it out to bid again. So the end date's the easy part. The begin date's the hard part. And I realize that's what everybody's interested in. Well, they're interested in both, obviously, but that's why we have a moving target on the front end, because they can say, well, we're on this project over here, we're going to finish that up. in 2 months, and that's when we're going to come over here, we think. But then it rains for a month off and on, and they can't. So that's why the start is a variable that we don't have control over. We have control over the end because we penalize them if they're not done by that end date. So your original question, 4 to 6 weeks from opening on a good bid to award contract.
And real quick, while I have you, with Terry, because it hits 3 council districts, we're seeing it's really because if I'm not mistaken, the Metro maintains it, but it's a state road, from what I've gathered. And so it's like doing this bulge, like where it's kind of like doing, like it's like having up or whatnot. And so when we got Metro to help with Terry, it was where these pieces are going. They just put, I don't know, like a pavement over it, if you will, but now it's just a pavement with a bump, and it's still the issue. And so we looked at trying to get Terry repaved, and I'm not sure that with that being a state road, is that a public works thing? Is that with you?
Yeah, good question. So resurfacing on any of these roads in Jefferson County is still managed by us through our resurfacing program. Public Works could do some small patching. They don't just do potholes. That's the majority of the work on the roadways. They can do some smaller, square patching in some areas, but that sounds like that's not necessarily the case. I know that on Taylorsville Road, we had a very similar situation because it was concrete underneath with asphalt on top, and I believe Terry may be the same thing because every one of those concrete joints, as they're expanding and contraction, it pushes up the asphalt. They can handle those. They come with a grinder on a skid steer or whatever and grind those down and then put some asphalt, but generally they keep coming back until it's resurfacing. So it's got to be part of our resurfacing program, and I believe Terry Road is in that rural secondary program, which is just a different pot of funds, but we can certainly check on that if it's still an issue.
I want to give Councilwoman Raymond an opportunity. She's been here the whole time. And yes, I did just say your name wrong again because I can't help myself.
Incredible. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Matt. I wanted to ask you, don't know if you got our question either, so we might want to check on this communication breakdown. But we know that Poplar Level Road, where people are popping tires all the time, is on the paving cycle, but we're looking for a date that it's going to be started and then completed. Do you know, Matt?
No, I don't. And I guess you already know the limits of that, where that is. It's basically the asphalt section north of the Watterson, because south of there is concrete, and we don't pave over concrete. But no, let me get back to you on that as far as schedule, if we know that from our contractor.
I'd appreciate that. And then to my colleagues right here, I want to, someone asked about process, and it is a complicated process filled with tons of expertise. There's also a really partisan piece of this from Frankfurt. So when we look at a supermajority in Frankfurt, regardless of the party, if its power base is outside of our metro areas, then they're not going to get the attention that they deserve. So we can talk a little bit more about that as colleagues. And lastly, I want to say we've got this new Louisville Department of Transportation. And as we meet with them and raise concerns like a crumbling roadway bridge on a state road, like, how do we share concerns with them and then they share concern with you? And how do we think about interacting with both entities?
Well, that's really your discretion how you want to do that. We take that at any time. We certainly, like I said before, and you would have been on the list previously as a state elected official when we sent out our big list and said, hey, what do you like on here, don't like, let us know your priorities. We are not doing it at that level with the council people, but that doesn't mean we're not taking it. We're just not doing it in a formal process. We'll take that at any time and however you want to do that, whether that's a phone call, email, text, or anything. So at any point in time. There's a good chance if it's a bridge and there's a problem like that for either replacement or repair, then we already have it because we have a lot of people that do data collection on those types of assets, and they're already in the system.
But you're meeting regularly with the new Department of Transportation here.
Absolutely. So if you want to go through that route as well, Bill, who's on the screen, is a good friend and former colleague at KYTC, and we communicate all the time. So that's obviously an option as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I want to get this wrapped up for Matt here, and I appreciate him being here. I have a couple of questions. Plans for Eastern Parkway. This is from Councilwoman Chappell. Is there anything on the board right now for Eastern Parkway?
Eastern Parkway, No, there's a project listed in the road plan for doing improvements, because there was again, a study from years ago that was making recommendations for, I believe, what we used to call a road diet, now we're calling right sizing, 4 lanes to 3, looking at bike lanes and center turn lane and so forth, but right now we don't have any funds to move forward with that aspect.
And the two-way conversion on Logan and Shelby?
Yeah, ongoing. Utility conflicts is the issue, not utility relocations. Didn't have good data when the plans were put out there for bid. It's under contract. They have been doing some work for the signals, but it is ongoing and probably will be well into next year before that is complete.
And then Hill Street opening back up. I think there's some construction that's happening on 65 that maybe Hill Street's closed as a result of.
So is that near the railroad tracks in Preston and Burnett and that area?
Yeah.
So that's with the Central Corridor project, and that bridge is getting replaced, and so this is pre-work. So the schedule on when that may open, it may not open until well into next year, because that's when the shutdown happens is next summer, and this is pre-work to that. So it may actually be continuous through that as well.
That's helpful. Thank you. Matt, I really appreciate you coming. I knew coming in that it was not going to be the easiest time, and I appreciate you showing up and answering questions. As you know, these are the kinds of questions we get from our constituents all the time, and just trying to find, the best answers that we can to provide to people is extremely helpful for us. So we are going to try to do this at our next meeting. We're going to have Bill Bell come in with Mike King. And so instead of sending questions, the colleagues, instead of sending them to my office, and I'm sorry we didn't get everything sent through to Matt for this one, instead of sending questions that you have about some of the larger infrastructure projects that are being handled by Metro government, for Bill and for Mike, if you can send your questions to them directly maybe, and then they can come prepared to talk about those things at our next committee meeting, which will be in 2 weeks. Looking forward to that. Matt, thank you again for coming. Appreciate it. Anybody else have anything that they need to say before we adjourn? Okay, so with nothing more on the agenda, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.